my Hexagon quilt is back. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll link to the videos I've made about it before. But a long story short is that in 2013 I started making a Hexagon quilt using only Denyse Schmidt fabrics, and then nothing happened. I made 100 hexagons maybe. And then I started it back up last year. And I think I got about 2100 hexagons in a box. But I need more than that. But I took a little break over the summer because I was waiting to get these fabrics. Some that I didn't have before, and some of them I had bought from a shop in Denmark, and some I had bought from a shop in America. So I had to wait because shipping is so ridiculously expensive these days. I had to wait for my parents to go to the US to visit my sister, which they did in May, and they brought that lot of fabric back to Denmark. And then when I saw my parents in the summer, they gave me the fabric from the US and the fabric from Denmark. So now I have fabric. Well, I had fabric before, obviously, but new to me fabric. And new to me prints and colors, which is great because I want this quilt to have a lot of variety. And as I looked before I ordered fabric at the colors and prints that I have already, it's funny that there's sort of an overlap between the colors that I normally use and colors that Denyse Schmidt uses for her fabrics. Like, for example, I don't use a lot of purple or lilac or anything like that, and neither does she, which means that there's practically any purple in my quilt. So yeah, that's just interesting. So now I have these new to me fabrics, and I've cut a whole pile of these rectangles that are waiting to become hexagons. So I cut the rectangles so that they're 2.5 inch by 3.5 inch. You can make hexagons from 2.5 by 2.5 inches. So if you got charm squares, you could carefully cut them into 4. But I prefer how the 3 by 2.5 just gives me a little bit of leeway. If the hexagon moves a little bit or becomes wonky in some way or other, or I cut it slightly closer than I should have when I'm cutting off these corners, which by the way you could just leave, but I think it's neater without the corners. And also when it's slightly longer on in one direction, gives you more options. So for example, if I wanted to catch this orange flower. I could position it like this or like this, so it depends on how you want to do it. So it just makes it a little bit more flexible. That's actually almost the same. So yeah, so that's why I cut it to 3 by 2.5. And because I cut off the corners, I've actually got a big bag of all these corners that I've cut off. And I'm not entirely sure what to do with them. I sort of kind of have an idea, but I'm not sure if it's going to work, and I'm not going to work on it just now. Here we go, adding some more corners to the pile. So as I said, I think I've got 2100 hexagons so far. And for the size of quilt, I probably need around 3,000 to 3,500. Which seems just like a crazy amount. But it's actually not too bad. So I made a video about this languishing, ignored project last year in September, I think. September, October. And then I did actually get back to the quilt. So that now it's actually a project. And not just an idea that I have that maybe someday I'll make. Because I sort of put it into a system, and I have a spreadsheet. Believe it or not. I have a spreadsheet, and my goal is to do 10 hexagons a day when I'm working on the project. So that means I make roughly 300 hexagons per month. So when you look at it like that, breaking it down, it actually works up fairly quickly. And when I was working on the project last winter, I would often make more than 10 hexagons per day. So I more than exceeded my goal. I have no idea when I'm going to finish the quilt, because making the hexagons, of course, is just one half of the project. The other half, which is probably going to take longer than making the hexagons, is to sew them all together. Which actually is my least favorite. I could happily make the hexagons all day long, but it's not as fun to sew them together. But it has to be done. But for now, I'm focusing on making approximately the number of hexagons that I think I need, and I can always make more if I need to. Because of the way that I want to sew the hexagons together, I want to have as many ready hexagons as possible. So I've got a hexi making winter ahead of me, and then hopefully in the spring I can get started on sewing the hexagons together. So that's it. My hexagon quilt is back, and I'm actually really excited. I've quite missed working on it. What about you? Have you got any hexagon projects on the way, or any other English paper piecing project? Because obviously you don't have to do hexagons, you could do squares or diamond shapes or whatever. So I'll report back when there's something to report. Well, thank you for watching. I hope you liked the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. And I hope you have a great day and happy stitching whatever you're making.